Hello and welcome to Pilates Fundamentals. This is a workshop rather than a workout. This is where you start if you've never done Pilates before, and also if you're a little bit rusty. It's also a good idea to come back to this from time to time, just to really make sure that you haven't lost something somewhere along the line. This is all about finding neutral position, the all-important ideal posture for the pelvis. It's about then looking at finding our core muscles, which will in turn help maintain our neutral pelvis and our neutral spine. And it's about looking at the correct placement for your shoulders. Most of us are round-shouldered. We need to learn to look at where our shoulders and shoulder blades should be. And then later on, once you are sure that you understand the basics, you'll then go on to do a few drills to really start to strengthen up the core muscles and increase your body awareness so that you know exactly where your shoulders are and where they should be. Okay, so the easiest way to find neutral position, your ideal posture, is to just lie down on your back. If it's uncomfortable for you to have your legs straight, then go ahead, bend your knees, and we'll pick it up a little bit later with you. But I think most people are feeling fine about lying down on their backs. So just stretch out. You want your legs inside the width of the hips, and arms running alongside your body, palms facing your body. So let's just lie here for a moment and breathe. Most of us don't breathe efficiently. There is a very specific type of breathing for Pilates called thoracic breathing, or lateral breathing if you prefer, where we breathe wide into the rib cage. But first of all, I just want you to make sure that you really are focusing on your breath, that you are in touch with your breath. So nice deep breath. Don't worry about anything else. Just relax if you wish here. And start to take stock of how your body feels today. Look out for any aches and pains. As I say, if this is uncomfortable for your lower back, you really need to go ahead and bend your knees now. So I want you to think about which areas of the body are in touch with the mat and the areas of the body where you have some space. So the back of the calves, for most of us, and of course our heels, are in touch with the mat. Some of us, the back of the thighs might be. And then you will feel that you're lying on the back of the pelvis. It's the pelvis, the two flat bones that kind of curve round. And these two flat bones are attached to a kind of triangular bone called the sacrum. That's just below the waist. And you've got your tailbone, of course. It's just above the tailbone. And that is ideally where you want to feel that you're resting right here. And you will notice when you're resting on that bone that you have some space here between the waist and the mat. Now, some of you will have a very big space. Some of you will barely be able to get your fingers between. It's okay. Don't worry about how much space you have. There will be a little bit of space there, though. Then you start to find that your ribs start to make contact with the mat as you work your way up, until you get to your shoulder blades. Now, some of you will have shoulder blades that dig in like little wings. It might help to just lengthen through the arms, settle with your ribs a little, and perhaps turn your palms up at this stage. Get the shoulders well away from the ears. And then just let your arms go to wherever they're going to go to. You'll then notice that you have that space between the neck and the mat, okay? These are all the natural curves of the spine. The spine is curved because it has to absorb a lot of shock. It would shatter if it didn't. And obviously for movement, allow for movement on different planes. Then you've got the back of the head resting on the mat. Now, ideally, your line of vision would be directly up to the ceiling. But because many of us have that round-shouldered posture, and what we refer to these days as a computer head, a forward head syndrome, some of you may find that this is quite uncomfortable for your neck, and your line of vision is somewhere back behind you. So you might want to fold up a little towel and put it underneath your head until you feel that your neck is lengthened and comfortable, okay, and your line of vision is straight up. You're not always going to use it, but for the purposes of this workshop, please do. So get used to how this feels. If it feels really comfortable and natural, then you're very lucky. You've got very good posture. For most of us, this is not how we would normally feel. Okay, so object of the exercise then is to make sure that we maintain this pelvic stability here, okay? So I'm going to give you a couple of visuals to think about. I want you to imagine that you have a tray of marbles resting on these three bones right here, the pubic bone and the hip bones, okay? And we don't want any of those marbles to roll around. At the moment, if you're breathing deep into the belly, that tray is going to be going up and down. That's okay, don't worry about that for a moment. And we're going to also think about keeping our shoulders exactly where they are and maintaining that nice long line through the spine. So I want you to imagine you've got a little right grate between the waist and the mat. Now, each time you inhale, as I say, you may well find that your belly is rising up at this stage. You'll feel the ribs expand, you'll feel your chest lift. As you exhale, we will all feel a drawing in, up and back sensation. Some of you will feel it more than others, and you really have to work hard at emptying your lungs here. If you're very lucky, you might even feel the pelvic floor lift and those abdominal muscles contract slightly, which is really what we're after. So just carry on inhaling, and as you exhale, just feel that sinking feeling of the belly. And if you're not feeling the pelvic floor naturally lift by itself, the next time that you exhale, I want you to take the opportunity to draw up the pelvic floor, draw the belly back, feel navel drawing back towards spine, no bones move, remember, as if the pelvic floor is lifting to meet the navel as the navel sinks. But the back doesn't sink. Don't squash the grape. So I just want you to practice that a few times, inhaling however you please for the time being, and then exhaling, feeling the pelvic floor lift, the belly draw back and the navel draw back to meet the pelvic floor. And you'll start to feel those abdominal muscles working, these deep core muscles. And you can think of the core, the center of the body, as this area right here, between the hip bones, the navel, and the pubic bone deep inside. Now the next time that you exhale and draw up the pelvic floor, draw the belly back and draw the navel back, you're going to hold those muscles, just gently. And now as you inhale, you'll feel that the rib cage opens up more, and this is what we call thoracic breathing, lateral breathing. So I want you to give it a go. Hold on to those lower abdominal muscles in the pelvic floor. And when you inhale, be aware of this upper area, the rib cage and the chest, opening up much more. And you can, in fact, rest your fingers on your rib cage with the middle fingers touching, so that as you inhale, your fingertips come apart, and as you exhale, those fingertips come back together. And the more practice you become at this, the more of a gap there will be. So don't worry at the moment if you're only feeling a very small movement there as you take deep breaths in. What I really want you to focus on here is as you inhale, try and maintain that core contraction right down here. And you could, in fact, rest one hand on the belly, one hand on the ribs here, so that as you inhale, you don't feel any movement underneath your hand here on the belly, but you do feel some movement through the rib cage. Another visual for you here, if you have your hand on the belly, as you inhale, I want you to imagine that this hand is burning hot, and you want to draw the belly away from your burning hot hand. The contraction is always going to be stronger as you exhale. So we need to be able to breathe into the thoracic area of the body so that we're always able to maintain a gentle contraction with the core muscles, because the core muscles will help maintain the stability of the pelvis, okay? So this is really what we're trying to do. We want to try and work our way towards ideal posture, so that the whole body works together and we're not overloading any one muscle group and causing imbalances in the body, because that will lead to aches and pains and eventually health issues. Now, I'm going to ask you to do a few things which will work these core muscles a little bit more now. So this is where we really start to think about the tray of marbles. We don't want the marbles to roll. We don't want to squash the grape. All I want you to think about is this right leg. You're going to inhale to prepare. And as you exhale, you're going to see if you can just lightly slide that right foot in along the mat until the knee is bent. You're going to inhale to prepare. You're going to exhale and you're going to stretch that leg out. And we're just going to think about whether our pelvis moves as we do that movement. We're going to try the other side. So we inhale to prepare. And as we exhale, don't worry if you're not with me. We don't have to be synchronized. We're going to just lightly bring that foot in. Remember, we don't want to squash the grate. We don't want the marbles rolling. We inhale to prepare, and as we exhale, we stretch that leg out. And just in your own time, I want you to do that a couple more times. Now, in the drills class for strengthening the core muscles and looking further at shoulder and pelvic stability, you'll be able to work a little bit harder and strengthen up the muscles. For now, I just want you to get a little bit of a feel for this. So at your own pace, just seeing if there's any movement. You can rest your hands on your hips if you like, if that feels better, if you need some feedback. There's also a drill on breathing as well. Breathing can be very confusing. We tend to breathe out on the exertion. So it's a lot easier at the moment to breathe in to prepare when you're not actually doing anything. So just think about that. When you're not doing anything, you're breathing in. Now this time as we breathe out, we're going to keep the knee bent. Now you really need to think about that right grate so that as you exhale and bend this second leg, you do not squash the grate, because you are likely to sink down with the waist, and we don't want that. If you do that, you've lost your neutral pelvis, and this is all about maintaining neutral. Okay. So we're going to lose and find neutral now. You can't really do it with your legs straight, but you certainly can with your legs bent. So without my hands on my pelvis, just watch what happens to the pelvis. I'm going to inhale to prepare. And as I exhale, I'm going to draw up the pelvic floor, scoop back the belly. It's much easier to do that when you exhale. And I'm going to squash my grape, and all the marbles have rolled up towards the navel. As I inhale, I need to come back to my neutral position. Now, if you're not sure, just remember how much space you had. See if you can still get your fingers between. That's going to be your neutral position. As you exhale, off you go again. Tuck, scoop, hollow, lose neutral, squash the grape. And then as you inhale, let's come back to the center. Another way of finding out whether you're in neutral, and we'll be doing more on this later, is to simply lift the head and shoulders, let your head rest in your hands, take a look. Hip bones, pubic bones should be absolutely level. And then as you exhale, you can tuck, scoop, hollow. Pubic bone is higher than the hip bones now. And as we inhale, we come back to our neutral line. Okay. And so that is simply an exercise in finding and losing neutral position. You can always start with your legs straight, but as you get more and more advanced, you're going to want to find neutral pretty quickly. So just get used to how that feels. Now, just hold that gentle contraction of the core. Some of you will find that it's quite difficult. You may have to let it go, but you're perfectly okay to do that when you're lying down on your back, because your spine is supported. Otherwise, do try. It's just a gentle contraction. We're going to move on up to the shoulders now. Okay, so palms facing your body. As you inhale, just slide your shoulders up to the ears. Feel how uncomfortable it is for the neck. And as you exhale, slide your shoulders all the way down. Feel the movement of the shoulder blades against the back. And let's do that a couple more times. Just sliding your shoulders up. And as you exhale, reach away. And again, we'll be doing some drills for your shoulders as well, looking at shoulder stability. For now, I just want you to get a feel for where your shoulders are and where they should be. So this is a good mobility exercise anyway. So let's get those shoulders well away from the ears. Quite often our shoulders are up around our ears without us even being aware that they're there. Now the next time that you breathe in, raise your arms up. Just be mindful of the position of the pelvis. Try and keep your shoulder blades down on the mat. Okay, spine stays exactly lined up. The next time that you exhale, just reach up. Try and touch the ceiling with your fingertips, and you'll feel your shoulder blades lift a little. And as you inhale, draw those shoulder blades right back down into the mat. And let's do that a few more times. So as I said before, a very common postural fault is the round-shouldered, rounded upper back, a kyphosis in the upper back. A lot of us are sitting at our desks or driving or slouched on the sofa, so we tend to create poor postural habits, and they tend to stick after a while, creating long, weak muscles and short, tight muscles. So your shoulder blades should be, unless you're reaching for something, down there on the mat, flat against the rib cage. More often than not, they're rounded away. Okay, now we're going to draw those shoulder blades back down. Now, the next time you exhale, go ahead, take your arms back behind you. Now I want you to think about that little ripe grape before you go. I want you to think about the marbles. The marbles stay, you don't want them rolling, and you don't want to lift your back, your waist, off that little ripe grape. Inhale to prepare. As you exhale, engage your core and slowly start to take your arms back behind you. This will tell you something about your shoulders. Now, don't let those ribs flare. Don't lose contact with that little ripe grape. You may or may not be able to get your fingers down to the ground. And as you inhale, raise your arms back up. And do that one more time. Don't expect to get your hands to the ground. If you expect to get your hands down to the ground, you may lose your posture. Keep the shoulders away from the ears. And then bring those arms back up. Now, one arm is going to go back behind you, and the other is going to come down by your side. And I just want you to think about whether you're lengthening through one side of the body. That's the arm that's going back behind you. You don't want to. Come back up to the top. You can do that on an inhalation. And as you exhale, let's take the other arm back. This will tell you something about the imbalance on the two sides of the body, perhaps. No rocking and rolling here. So just getting you in this Pilates fundamentals to think about where your shoulders are, okay, shoulder stability, pelvic stability, neutral position, and the role of the core muscles to help maintain both, and also get you to start to really bring your mind to the class. Hold one arm down, bring the other arm up, bring your arm back down by your side. Now, one more time, as you exhale, scoop hollow, tuck the tailbone to lose neutral. And then I want you to come back, find neutral position if you can. Just place your hands on the lower belly, give me a breath in. Breathe out. And again, feel the ribs. As you breathe out, see if you can feel the pelvic floor draw up, that belly draw back, use those muscles, and then release and relax.